Hello, everybody. Happy National Honeybee Day.
Yay!
I am Sari Karp. I am the Executive Director of Sustainability Matters. We are the conservation nonprofit that is hosting this event. We have obviously gone virtual now, but under normal circumstances, we run events in about 8 counties, stretching from Harrisonburg up through Loudoun. We're pretty new. We're a grassroots organization, and we've been running for about almost 2.5 years now. And we have hosted over 100 events in those 2 years, ranging from small workshops at the State Arboretum of Virginia at Blandy to the Valley's largest Earth Day Festival, which was supposed to happen again this year, but the pandemic intervened. And we have a strong focus on sustainable gardening, sustainable agriculture, and sustainable business. And obviously, honeybees fit with all of that. We do a lot of pollinator-friendly projects, including the one that we were just chatting about, which is making trash bloom, planting pollinator habitat literally on top of trash at the Shenandoah County landfill. We're hoping to expand that to other landfills. So we have a bunch of exciting virtual events coming up, including a virtual wine tasting with sheep and potato chip pairings with Route 11 potato chips. So we do a lot of fun stuff like that. More seriously, later in the fall, we will have a workshop called Get Paid to Go Green, which shows landowners of all sizes, no minimum acreage, how to get state and federal funding for doing conservation projects like planting pollinator habitat or riparian buffers, or if you're a farmer, fencing livestock out of streams, putting in a green roof. So information for all of that will be posted on our Facebook page. I think a lot of you found it through our Facebook page, and I will post in our chat what the Facebook page is. And also you'll have a chance to sign up for our email list later if you want to. So we encourage you all to keep in touch. And we're going to put up a poll in just a minute so you can tell us a little bit about yourselves. Let me see if I can put up the poll. You should see a poll now. And we want to hear who's in your group, how many kids we have, how many adults we have, and whether any of you have beekeeping experience. Just a few housekeeping things for questions throughout the event. You can put questions in the Q&A. Chat is for general chat, and the questions will be monitored. If any of you are watching on Facebook, you can also put questions in the Facebook comments, and those will be monitored and relayed to Amy, who is our star beekeeper, at the end of it. There's also the possibility to ask questions by raising your hand, which allows us to unmute you. And I want to add as well that you are all pioneers. This is our first webinar. We've hosted Zoom meetings before, but we're still working out the kinks. So we want to say thank you for joining us and helping us work out the technological kinks. Our one very big tech kink today is weather induced. We can't blame Zoom for this one, but we are live, but not live because bees don't like rain. So we are not coming to you from Seven Bend State Park today, but we do have a pre-recorded video because the weather forecast was somewhat accurate for once. So we suspected this was going to be an issue. So Amy and Jennifer went out there and recorded video, and Amy will be taking questions afterward. So we're going to start playing that for you in just a minute. And also just introducing our panelists. Sustainability Matters is a primarily volunteer-driven organization, and we have an amazing group of volunteers with fantastically varied backgrounds. So our big star today is Amy Hodge, who is a science teacher and also a beekeeper. She is maintaining the hives in Seven Bend State Park in Woodstock on behalf of the Shenandoah County beekeepers. And she's a Sustainability Matters volunteer, so we thought her children's education background and her beekeeping background were the perfect storm for National Honeybee Day. And her educational sidekick, equally well trained in team teaching through her background as a professional teacher, is Jennifer Garrett. Jennifer is the videographer for these videos. They've been out there in the park multiple times, sweating through their bee suits, doing these videos. And Carrie works at Friendly City Food Co-op down in Harrisonburg, which is one of Sustainability Matters' strongest partners. But she also comes from a beekeeping family. So she grew up with being surrounded by these little stinging things and having a lot of knowledge in that background. And also a lot of what she does at Friendly City is kids education and kids programming. And so she is helping us with a lot of that. All right. I think that you guys have had the opportunity to fill in the poll. And I'm going to end the polling, and I'm going to share the results so you can see what's going on here. But the one thing I will say is we do not appear to have any children with us today, which is very interesting because we planned this to be somewhat kid-friendly. But I guess that's good. We can ask questions at a more professional level, right, Amy? And go into some more details. And I got to say that some of the things that Amy has told me about bees are maybe not for tender young ears. They're interesting creatures. And we have 43% have some beekeeping experience and 57% do not. So, all right. I am going to turn this over to Amy. Do you want to do a little introduction, and then Jennifer, you're going to share your screen and share the video, and we'll move into questions? That
sounds good.
Sounds good. Amy, anything to say before as a prelude to the video?
Just the video, or the apiary is our local bee club apiary, Shenandoah County Beekeepers. So all of you guys with beekeeping experience, if you are looking for some community of other beekeepers, we hope you check us out.
Okay.
Did you want me to talk about why why we're not checking in the rain, or?
I think actually that would be a good idea. Yeah, tell them why we're not actually out there at the beehive and what happens to bees in the rain.
So bees like to fly on very sunny, warm days, and so that gives you your happy bees. And when it's rainy, all of the foraging worker bees who normally go out into the field and get the pollen and the nectar, they stay in the hive, and they're also the hive's most aggressive defenders. And so when you open up a beehive on a rainy, drizzly day, all of those foragers who should be out collecting pollen and nectar are in there, and they are not happy, and you open up the hive and they're not happy, and they just come out and they're very aggressive, and that's when you get stung a lot. And I found that out the hard way.
All right, Jennifer, do you want to screen share and show the video?
Yep, here we go.
Hi, welcome to Hive Live. I'm Amy.
We can't see the video.
We can't see it.
Give me a sec. Shoot. Sorry, I thought we could hold it for a little bit and start it.
All right, it says you've started, so give it, there we go.
Here we go.
Hi, welcome to Hive Live. I'm Amy.
Got it?
And I'm Jennifer. And you are sort of live, or we are sort of live. We're recording this on Wednesday, August 12th, around 4:30, because we're afraid it's going to rain on Saturday, and we wanted to come to you live from the hive, but if it rains Saturday, we won't be able to. So we're doing this as a backup. If you are seeing this, we will be on live to answer your questions on Saturday. And I want to welcome you to Seven Bend State Park. This is the state park right outside of Woodstock. And we are at the Lupton entrance. And if you're hiking and you're hiking on the Blue Trail, you will see our apiary. We are right there. So we hope that when you're hiking, you'll say hi if we're here and take a peek. And so this is our apiary. An apiary is a fancy name for a bee yard. So an apiary just means a place where you have a lot of beehives. And you can see all of our beehives. These are these towers of boxes. And inside each box, there is a family of bees. And each family has one bee, a really important bee called the queen, and she keeps the family together. And as long as she's healthy and everything's going well, you have a healthy hive. And if something happens to the queen, then the hive can die. So you want to be careful with that. We want to show you, if you look, there's a bunch of boxes. We want to take a look inside of a box. So this right here is a box I could put on top of one of these hives, and you can see inside of each box I have these frames. So if you think of each hive sort of like an apartment building, each box is a separate story. And inside each box I have these frames, and each frame is like a separate room. And this is called comb. And you've got your honeycomb, and inside here is where the bees, they do all their life functions. They lay their eggs, and the eggs hatch into larvae, and the larvae grow up and develop into bees all inside the comb. And the bees put their food and store their food in here, and they live on the frame. Now I have a hive here that I'm inspecting right now, and right now I'm looking to see how is this hive doing. Is it healthy? Does it have enough food? Does it have enough room? And so we're going to take a look inside the hive, and we really want to look at two different types of bees today. There are two types of female bees. There are worker bees and there are queen bees, and we're going to look at both today. So first, we're going to look at the workers. And if you can see in here, take a look, all of these bees in here are worker bees. And I'll pull up a frame. And you can see all of these worker bees are on this frame. And so the worker bees are the female bees who, like their name says, they do all of the work in the hive. They keep the hive clean. They defend it against other bees from other hives. They take care of the eggs and larvae and they also go out and they fly around and they look for nectar and honey and bring that back for the bees' food. And they also defend the hive, I think I said, so if you've ever been stung by a bee, a honeybee, you've been stung by a worker bee. All right, there are thousands and thousands of worker bees in a hive, but there's only one queen bee. The queen bee is also a female bee, but the queen bee is important because she can lay eggs. So as long as she's there and laying eggs, the hive will continue to function and grow, and you'll get new bees. All right, I'm looking for the queen bee here, and I found her earlier, and she's actually on this side, so I'm going to turn the frame around carefully. Don't want to squish any bees or drop the frame. That's not good. It's happened before.
Them.
Now, the queen bee is so important that we put a mark on her. She doesn't come with a blue mark, but we have marked her so we can find her more easily. So she's right there. And you can see she has a really long abdomen or back section. And so she has that long abdomen because she needs to lay a whole bunch of eggs and she needs to reach the bottom of the cell.
We can
So
see
there
her.
she is.
See the blue dot?
Yeah. And let's see what she's going to do now. And you see these bees around her. She's called a queen, and these bees around her are her court. They take care of her. They make sure she's clean. They make sure she has food. And I'm hoping we'll get to see her lay an egg and just, yep, she's going to lay an egg, right? She might not be happy because she's tired of being out and she's going to go hide. All right, well, there she goes. She doesn't like being out in the air, so she's going to go hide where it's dark.
Because most of the time, all of those are that's in there and it's dark inside, right?
Yeah, so bees are creatures, especially the queen, they like being in the dark. They like being when it's close together, and they're not really happy when you open up their home and you expose them to sunlight and the air like that. Well, thank you for joining us for Hive Live. I hope you found this interesting, and if you have questions, let us know and we'll do the best to answer. And hope to see you again in a month or two. Bye. Bye.
Can't hear you, sorry. We can't hear you.
I thought it was me.
There we go. Still can't hear you.
So one of the really fun things about going out is first you get to put on a bee suit, which is a white, like kind of not heavy, but you're totally covered. Your hands are covered, your head is covered. Because when Amy picked up the bee things and we got really close, like there were bees buzzing all around and stuff. And it was really fun, but yeah. We got some questions coming in, I think. Do you see questions?
I do see a question here. We have one asking, what is the preferred treatment for mites?
That will depend on the type of year, the time of year, and whether or not you are broodless, and whether or not you have honey supers on, and whether or not you are willing to use harsh chemicals or want to stay more organic. There is an app or a website called the Honeybee Health Coalition, and they have a great varroa mite management tool where if you just Google Honeybee Health Coalition Varroa Mite Management Tool, it'll come up and it will ask you all these questions. It'll ask you, are you queen right, your temperature, your mite count, do you have honey, all of these things. And then based on your answers, it will tell you, okay, your best treatment options right now are X, Y, and Z. So that is a really good place to start if you're looking for mite treatment. Currently in our apiary, we did a workshop where we mite tested all of the queen right hives, and we had 3 hives that had more than, that had 6 mites, well, 2 mites per 100 or 6 mites total in our sample. And so we are currently using Formic Pro to treat those 3. It is a organic formic acid treatment, and but that one is very temperature sensitive, so we had to wait until it was relatively cool because you need it to be less than 85 degrees or less for the first 3 days of your treatment, and preferably for the rest of it. During the winter, we will also do an oxalic acid dribble when they're broodless, and we did that last year and had really good results from that. So I hope that helps. And but again, the Honeybee Health Coalition Varroa Mite Management Tool is really good.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yay. Okay. Amy, do you want to just, for those who aren't as familiar, do you want to explain a little bit what the mite situation is, why this is such a big deal?
So the varroa mite, if you heard your grandpa talk about keeping honeybees back in the 60s or the 70s, honeybee keeping was really easy. You basically set up your hive, you left your hive for the summer, you extracted your honey, you got lots of honey, your bees were healthy and happy. It was really easy. And I believe around the late 90s, early aughts, we started getting the varroa mite more prevalent. It's a parasite, sort of like a tick. It's related to a tick, and it's sort of like a tick for bees. And it came from the Asian honeybee, which has a different life cycle and can coexist with the mite, but it's really spread throughout pretty much all the US and wherever other people keep honeybees. And it's really damaging to the hives. And so that's our number one pest that we are trying to control.
Okay, well, we have a couple of questions in the Q&A box, and we also have a raised hand. I'll go to the Q&A box first. Amanda asks how much it costs to start beekeeping, and can you obtain and use used hive equipment?
It's a really good question. It's not cheap to start beekeeping, and it's a big outlay initially. Your suit is probably your suit and your veil and your protective equipment, it's probably going to run you from $100 to $200. To have enough for one large with your foundation and your bees and your boxes and your frames is probably going to run you $300 to $500 per hive. And you can get used boxes, and you have to be very careful as far as you need to clean them. You need to scorch them with like a propane flame, but you should not use used frames or used comb, because that can spread disease, especially American foul brood. If you are interested in getting into beekeeping, the Shenandoah County Beekeepers, we offer a beginning beekeeping class every late winter, early spring. And the information for that comes out in the Winter Park and Recs catalog. And so if you're interested in beekeeping and want to learn more about it, that class is a great opportunity. And we also have volunteer opportunities. Once you've taken the class, volunteer opportunities at the apiary at Seven Bins. So if you want to learn how to beekeep, get some experience, decide if it's for you, that's a really good way to do that.
Great. We also have a question from Mary, who says, your hive seems smaller than I've seen. You must have constructed them yourselves. Will bees tolerate a variety of conditions?
It's an excellent question. We have 3 sizes of hives out in the apiary, and the one that I was working on is the smallest. It's called a nuke, and they are 5-frame boxes. And nukes are really good if you want to grow bees. So if you want to grow bees and get more bees, a nuke is a really good way to do it. If you want to have bees and really focus on honey collection, you would want to do an 8-frame or a 10-frame. And I don't know if you noticed in the background of the video, in the back of our apiary, we have our 10-frame hives, and in the middle, we have our 8-frame, and then up front, we have our nukes, which are 5 frames. And it's a lot easier to go through a nuke and find the queen than it is to go through a really big 10-frame. So that's why I used the smaller hive.
And we also have a raised hand. That is Harold. Harold, we're going to allow you to talk. I know you asked a question in the chat as well, but we're going to allow you to talk so that you should be able to unmute yourself. Go for it, Harold.
No, it's you, Harold.
Harold? Can anybody hear Harold?
I
I
can
think
hear
he
him
needs
because
to turn up his volume.
Harold, maybe turn up your volume on your mic.
it wasn't me, Harold. I'm I'm sorry, guys. He's in one room and I'm in the other, and so we signed up for this thing, and I think that I'm the one who clicked.
Okay. Do you have a question?
No, I don't. Hold on a minute. Here, Harold.
No problem.
Use the
We are
iPad.
going to move to Joan Commodore then. Joan, I am, and you can, Harold or Harold's significant other, you can always cycle back to us later if you have more questions. Joan, you should be unmuted, or if you unmute yourself, I think. Joan, you've got to unmute yourself too. Thank you.
She's not showing up.
Joan, you're,
Bottom of your feed. Oh, it says to join audio.
yep. Joan, it's still showing that you're muted, and we have unmuted you on our end, but you may have to unmute yourself too.
I have a question while we're waiting. Amy, what do you do with the honey that you get from the aviary?
Well, I just extracted the honey late July, and right now it is stored in jars in my basement, and we are looking to find maybe some way to sell local honey to raise some funds for our club, and also, but that's in process. Now, what do I do with the honey? I like it on toast, and I like it on yogurt.
Good answer. I have a question too, because I know the answer, but I thought the answer was so fascinating and somewhat disturbing that I thought others might like to hear it. When we were practicing and I was coming up with random bee questions, my question had been, does the queen sting? And Amy launched into a really interesting, rather Game of Thrones-esque explanation. So go for it, Amy.
So when the hive is growing a new queen, they like to grow multiple queens. So in case one doesn't make it, they have a backup. So the first queen that hatches.
Grow a queen?
Grow a queen, like, yes, you grow a queen
I
by
did turn off my mic.
female egg, extra royal jelly. So the food that a female egg gets determines what genes are turned on, whether it's
Harold.
into a work
Harold.
queen. And so you only need one queen. So the first queen that hatches will go and she'll basically destroy the other queen cells. And if two queens hatch at the same time, they will fight, and that's where they use their stinger, and only one survives.
Yikes.
Wow. Okay, see, this is why it might not be a bad thing that there aren't any kids to be too upset by this.
I don't know. In my experience, kids might be like, wow.
Fair point. Okay. I think I'm overestimating the sensitivity of children, particularly these days, right? We have a question from Joan in the Q&A box. Do any of our native bees live in hives, or are they all underground?
That is an excellent question, and I don't feel that I am knowledgeable enough about all of the native bees to answer. I am pretty sure that the native bees are, most of them are solitary. I believe the bumblebee has a different type of hive, but it's much smaller and they don't store honey. So even if they do live in communities, I believe the bumblebee lives in a community for that summer, but only the queen overwinters. But again, I would need to look up more to give a more detailed answer.
And Joan, from my somewhat limited native bee knowledge, I've vaguely heard as well that there are some that live communally, but like Amy said, not in a hive to the same extent, either with size of population or complexity of social structure that the honeybees experience. But we'll have to check. more on that. Carrie, are there any questions on Facebook?
There are not.
There are not. Everybody in Facebook is fully informed already.
One thing I'd like,
Yeah.
one thing I'd like to say, if you want to come to the park and talk live, Seven Bend State Park is going to start doing a talk to a beekeeper. And the first one is next Saturday, August 22nd at 10:30. So you would need to go to the Lupton entrance park, and you would walk up, you go a quarter mile down Lupton, turn right onto the Blue Trail, and it's at the top where the chimneys are. And I believe there will be signs. So if you're interested in that, or you just want to go out and have a great day at the park, we're going to do that on August 22nd. August 5th, and August 19th, and they're all at 10:30.
You probably mean September 5th and September 19th, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, September 5th and September 19th. Yes, definitely.
What are the rain contingencies for that?
I believe if it rains, it will. Well, we're not going to have the hives open, so
Okay.
I don't know. That's an excellent question.
Okay. So maybe not great to come if it's raining, but
If it's raining, I would skip it. But if it's a nice sunny day.
And our original plan for Hive Live was to check in about every other month. There's a possibility that we will do it again sooner, given that we were not able to actually be live in the park today. So I think the logistics of that are still being figured out. But if, again, the best way to kind of keep on top of, and hear about it is through our Facebook and our email list. And oh wait, we have one more question before we go to the final poll. Amanda asks if there are any regulations about selling the honey you collect from your hive.
Yes. And it has to do, small scale versus large scale. But the biggest thing is it needs to be labeled that it is raw, unfiltered honey.
Question before we go to the final poll. Amanda asked.
And the other thing is that you need to you need to check on the website for the exact things, but you need to label raw unfiltered honey. You need to label don't feed to infants under a year, and it needs to have the source. But if you're selling honey, please check on the state website for the exact details.
And we have another question from Amanda, our star future beekeeper. Does it help to have pollinator plants in your garden for the bees? And do bees help the vegetables in your garden?
Yes. Well, first, if there aren't any honeybees in the area, even if you plant pollinator plants, it would help local bees and local pollinators, but you're not going to get the honeybees. So you need to have a hive. Bees normally fly in a 1 to 2 mile radius from their hive. They'll fly up to 5 miles, but they prefer to stay a little closer to forage. If you've ever gotten a squash or a cucumber or a tomato or some vegetable and or an apple that just doesn't look right, it's kind of lumpy, it's misshapen, that's usually because it was not fully pollinated. So having pollinators around your fruits and vegetables causes them to be fully pollinated and have a good shape, large fruit. Did I answer all of the question?
I think you did, and I would just add that whether you have beehives or not, as it is always good to have pollinator plants, and it is particularly good to have native pollinator plants, native perennials, because many of the native bees who are essential for pollinating a lot of the fruits and vegetables that we need the native plants. They have evolved to only be able to adapt to native plants, and some of them really have specific host plants that they can only manage. There's one type of bee, for example, that can only consume nectar from a particular wildflower called spring beauty, which is a spring ephemeral. And so they're only active in that season. And it's essential for our biodiversity to be able to attract those. The same, of course, goes with butterflies and the caterpillars that become butterflies. Most of them are kind of like human kids. They're super fussy about their diets, and they can only consume a particular type of plant. Like monarch caterpillars can only consume milkweed, is the most famous one. So absolutely, you want a pollinator garden. You want a pollinator garden with mostly native plants, and you want to have a wide variety of colors and of bloom times. So try to get something to bloom from early in the spring through the fall, and you will actually see that as our demonstration pollinator pilot plot develops at the Shenandoah County landfill. If anybody is ever at the dump, go and check out Making Trash Bloom there, and you'll see you won't see everything blooming at once because it's designed not to bloom at once, but you will see an instructional sign that shows you what plants are there and when they bloom. And you'll see that it's designed to have as long a period as possible, from the coreopsis in the spring to the goldenrod in the fall. So,
Sarah, we do have a Facebook question. We have Emily, whose daughter wants to know if you can feel bee stings through the suit.
Yeah, that's a good question. The suit is not 100%, but I would say it's probably 95%. However, I have gotten stung through my jeans. It usually doesn't hurt as much as if you get stung on bare skin. And I have gotten stung through my gloves. I wear light gloves, and if I do something stupid like squish a bee, I will definitely get stung. The veil works really well to protect your face, and that's really the most important, as long as your veil is on correctly.
so we have a couple more questions. We have a question from Paula, who wants to know if Friendly City Food Co-op will be selling the lovely honey you produce from the hives in Seven Bends.
I don't think we got that much. If we do sell the honey, it will most likely be local. It'll either be at the park or through a local way. I mean, and by the co-op is local, I'm talking even more micro-local, like Woodstock.
Right.
And I see a question from Sarah R. It says, if the 1 to 3 miles are all suburban communities, would the hive still thrive? And I do not have experience with urban or suburban beekeeping, but there are many urban and suburban beekeepers. So there are ways to do it. I would expect that you would need to monitor your hives pretty closely to make sure that they have food, and maybe supplement feeding with sugar water if there's not enough local forage. Urban beekeepers.
And we have another question from Amanda, who wants to know if we would ever put a beehive at the landfill near the wildflowers. And actually, we were talking about that earlier. I think it's a possibility. The county has been fantastic. They have gradually really gotten behind the, Making Trash Bloom project, and might be open to that. Right now, what we have at the landfill is a very small pilot plot, because the ultimate goal is to plant literally on top of a trash cell. And a trash cell is not ready to be planted on every year. So in the meantime, there's a pollinator plot, a demonstration garden that is about 20 feet by, at this point, about 70 feet long. So it's a small area, and probably we'd be focusing on native bees and I think at this point, but I don't know. I think it could be an option once the 5 acres are planted in a couple of years. Why not make landfill honey? So that could be a fun thing to do. Anything else on Facebook, Carrie?
I am not seeing anything.
Nope. Okay, we are good. Well, thank you all so much for being pioneers and sticking with us. We have a final exit poll for you, which I'm going to put up on the screen. Tell us how you enjoyed the event, or we hope you did enjoy the event and that you learned and that you will use the information. And so we are launching that right now. And we hope that we will see you all again very soon, and that this next time, hopefully, the weather will cooperate and we will be able to be actually live in the park with the bees being able to be out and about and not afraid of being hit by a raindrop the same size as they are, right? So